Making your way through work Monday takes everything you got. Then Monday night rolls around and you realize there's a shot. You're only 10 points away. All those times when your team had no fight, they're just so gosh darn frail. Then your star quarterback let another deep ball sail, and your third round pick bet on his team. Then go check out our streets where everybody knows your pain, and they listen to complaints. You wanna be where you can see our bodies bring you no shame. You wanna go where everybody knows your pain.
Welcome into another episode of Dad Bod Fantasy Squad. I am here with House. What's up, dude?
How we doing, man?
Good,
been
dude.
a minute.
We finally got. It has been a minute. We finally got Robbie off an episode, dude. We're 2 for 2 right now.
Yeah, man. I've been busy. Haven't been able to jump in as much as I'd like to in these last couple weeks, but things are slowing down. So back in the saddle for all the big House fans that are out there.
Yeah, and it's getting to winter time. The sports are starting to settle down. Oh,
yes, sir.
It's gonna be go time. Speaking of go time, we have a good show for you guys tonight. Before it's go time for the game at 8 o'clock tonight, 8:15, whatever it starts at. We're going to go over some of the remaining games on Sunday. Most of them are the 4 o'clock plus, but we did have one o'clock we wanted to talk about. But before we get into that, so a lot of my leagues are a lot of friend leagues. I don't do any huge competitive leagues. Like we're in the Scott Fish Bowl and a couple other things, but I am in a lot of friend leagues. It's one of my favorite way to connect and stay in touch with my friends. I just saw the craziest trade go down, and I still can't grasp it. Najee Harris was traded for Robert Woods in one of my leagues, and we're all in favor of the non-vetoes. It's been years to finally kind of convince all of these groups, like, dude, no more vetoes, no more vetoes. Yeah, dude, yeah. Najee Harris for Robert Woods, Bobby Trees.
Why?
I don't know. I said to him, he asked another dude. He said, I offered him to so-and-so. He wouldn't give me Isaiah McKenzie, so I did this. And I said, I would have gave you probably Bateman. I would buy into running backs all the time that are doing not well. I don't know how I feel about Najee either.
Yeah, I mean, he hasn't been good.
No,
but I mean, he's got to be more valuable than Robert Woods.
He absolutely,
right?
In my mind, I'm serious.
That's wild.
I would have gave him Bateman, and I'm pretty well. I'm my wide receivers are pretty set, but man,
that's wild.
And I think it's even more wild that the Isaiah McKenzie owner turned him down. And then speaking of trades, also I mentioned vetoes. Another league I'm in just got a trade veto, and I was like, ugh.
I hate that.
Yeah, Alex did a trade, right? And his got vetoed, and he was pissed.
Yeah, there's trust your league mates, right? You know, there's no reason to do anything like that. I told you guys a story when we were talking about Alex's on a fantasy baseball trade years ago that I'm still bitter about getting vetoed, but you know, that's neither here nor there right now. But let people make their trades, right? Unless it's egregious.
Right.
Right. Najee for Robert Woods.
Well, we let it go. Assuming my thought is, unless there is a real reason where you're like, this was collusion, you're selling
for sure.
Bad trades happen all the time. This dude I know is still trying to play, and I think he's 3-2. So he's well in the mix.
Yeah. I mean, I just don't. I don't see it.
Some trades just don't make sense.
If you don't trust your league mates enough to not have them in there, get out of that league.
Yeah, I think you gotta let the trades be made unless you know for a fact this person was selling because they're buddies with somebody. I don't know.
Yeah. I mean,
Uh,
I'm not out here offering trades to Missy in the league that we're in together for that
right.
very reason.
Oh
So,
yeah, because you don't want anybody going, oh, this looks suspicious.
yep. Even though there's stuff that could help, she could use, a piece here. I could use a piece there. Just won't do it.
I don't blame you. Especially all the shit you'd give if you lost a trade or really won.
Oh yeah.
Let's get into some of these games and this episode and really any of the game preview episodes. We like to kind of talk about what side we're taking on betting wise and how that impacts. Like maybe this is an indication. Vegas knows more than us, right? Maybe this is an indication I should be a little bit more bullish or more bearish on players. So first game we have is the only 1:00 game that we're going to be talking about today is Vikings versus Dolphins. Vikings are -3 and the over under is 45.5. That's going to be a tough line.
The -3 or the over under?
The -3 kind of scares me. Dolphins are just like, they look good, but obviously they're not the favorites here because there's no Tua.
Yeah, I mean with what's his name, Skylar Thompson.
Mm-hmm.
I had to double check that real quick. With him in there, I mean, obviously that's going to move the line. I'd be curious to see what it was if Tua was in there, or even Teddy for that matter. But I think the Vikings probably come away here with the win.
You take them -3?
I probably do.
I think I would take -3 too. The over under is one that I'm actually probably going under.
Yeah, I think that if there's a lot of points scored, it's going to be by one team and not the other.
Yeah.
So,
well, let's get into some of the players on the Viking side. I really, we want to focus on the questionables, right? Dalvin Cook, Justin Jefferson, you're not benching them for any situation unless their performance starts tailing off. Adam Thielen, though, has been questionable all season, not like injury wise, just questionable. Like, do I play him? Do I leave him on my bench? Is he bye week fill-in? He faces an average secondary with Dolphins. They're not great. They're not bad. Do you expect a startable week from Thielen?
Yeah, I think Thielen's probably a flex play. Looking at the matchup, he's a couple of the sites I've looked at has him around wide receiver 30 this week.
Okay,
but the Dolphins aren't great against the pass, right? I think they're 22nd in points against from wide receivers, so that's bottom third of the league.
Yeah.
So you have to run receivers out there for him, right? And I think we just talked about if one team, if there's going to be points in this game, it's going to be by one team, and I think it's Minnesota. So I think you can be comfortable running Thielen out there. He's getting targets, at least 7 in the last 4 games. So I think 7, 8, 9, and 7 is what it's been. So I think he's a flex play this week.
I'm with you. Like I don't actually own Thielen in any leagues. I was a little bit cautious about getting him, but I think I would. Like there's a couple buys this week. With the Raiders are on bye. So if you have Devontae Adams, he might sneak in there. I'm trying to look at real quick who else is on.
I think it's the Lions. I think it's the Texans.
Amon-Ra. I don't know if you were still starting Brandon Cooks. Like Thielen becomes a nice viable option for those.
There's one other team I think too, but I can't remember who it is off the top of my head.
I have it in front of me, but it looked like a lot. Oh, there it is. Tennessee Titans.
There you go.
Which, if you had Robert Woods started,
there you go. Here's your fill-in for Robert Woods.
Yeah. Dolphins side, Skylar Thompson, like we said, is going to get the start this week. You still have to plug Waddle and Tyreek, right? Like, even going to Thielen, would you? Okay, you're sticking with Waddle and Tyreek.
Yeah, I mean, those are the two guys, right? Those are two guys that I think are relatively quarterback proof because they don't rely on somebody. Hill maybe a little bit more. They don't rely on, somebody like Allen being able to stretch the field.
Right.
Even more conservative, they can take those short passes and still make big plays. I think you can run them out there. Vikings D, again, not great against receivers. Or they are. So it's weird because they give up a bunch of passing yards, but they're actually decent against receivers. So that's the only thing that you want to worry about here. So I would run them both out there, but I think lower ceiling than you would normally have, right? You're not going to get that higher upside that you might expect in other weeks.
Other Bobby Trees over here asking Waddle or Sutton.
That is a good question.
Broncos face
Broncos.
Their Monday Night Football playing the Chargers. I personally think I go Sutton.
Probably.
Like this is you. I think Waddle's the clear start once Tua is back. Yeah. I think that Skylar Thompson isn't that bad. I really don't. But as you said, like it's the over under seems high for Skylar Thompson to be out there. Minnesota hasn't scored a ton of points, like
which we kind of expected them to do at the beginning of the year, right? I know we've all talked about with Dalvin and JJ and all the weapons they have, but I'm with you. I think it's Sutton here, but I don't think it's overwhelming, right?
No.
Just because of how bad the Broncos offense has been too.
Yeah, and Sutton has looked good. The other question on the Dolphins side, so Raheem Mostert's been on fire. A little banged up this week. He did get a full practice in today. I think this is one of the toughest decisions that you're probably facing with how the RB situations are. Like, what are you doing here? It's a solid matchup for RBs. Is he a play for you? Like,
yeah. So you saying that Mostert's a little banged up is basically standard for his career, right? I mean, he's always a little bit banged up.
Yeah.
I don't love it as a play, but I still think the way that running back play has been this year, that he's in the mix, right? Running backs have been all over the place. We just talked about, again, back to Najee, right? People were drafting him in the top 5, and he's been so bad, mostly because the Steelers suck right now. But, I think that Mostert plugs in. He's probably low-end RB2-ish is where I would slot him in, just because of the offense. I think they're going to dare him to throw and see if Thompson can beat him. So
and that makes it a little bit scarier, right? Like if they're like, okay, we got to hold off on Mostert. I think teams like this, where you have Tyreek and Waddle, can't go full on out to stop the run and say, okay, beat us, because those guys can beat you in a second on anything. No, I agree. I if I had Mostert though, I'm just selling. I'm selling for some sort of value right now. I don't want to play this game. I would sell. We did get a question. We will be talking about this, but to answer it quickly, I think he's a great start this week.
Agreed.
We will get more on.
If you're listening, the question was, is Eno Benjamin a good start this week? If you can't see it on the screen. And Mario and I are both clearly on the yes side, and we'll talk about it more in a little bit.
Yeah, Seattle defense is rough, but we have one game, and then we'll get to that one. Panthers versus Rams. Carolina is +10 in this one. The over-under is 42. So I think I go Carolina here for 10 points.
+10?
Against the Rams, who have been horrendous.
It's a big cover. Are they going to score? Like, outside of CMC, are they going to score?
You're right. I think even like PJ Walker being pushed out there. I think I still take the points here. It sounds stupid though. I think the Panthers are awful.
I think I'm going Rams. I think I take the Rams and I lay the 10. And they probably win.
You're probably
and
right.
they probably win 31-21, and it's a push, and I lose my money.
The question for the Carolina, the over under, I would probably take. Shit, dude. Both defenses are so suspect. I think I take the over.
I'm
42.
Yeah, I'm on the over for sure. Cooper Kupp might score 4 touchdowns because Carolina's so bad.
The Rams defense has been real suspect. There's not a player that you're starting outside of CMC.
Nope, not at all.
And you probably feel like shit starting CMC right now.
I mean, I don't think you ever feel terrible running him out there just because of who he is and what any
can
given
break off.
Sunday with him, right? What he can do, but you don't love it just based off that team and that offense, right?
Yeah, maybe we see a different Carolina this week. New coach, new quarterback.
No Baker, that's got to be an upgrade, right?
Yeah, it could be better for them. The Rams side, this could be the get right game for them, right? This could be the game that they needed all year, and they finally have it. They've played horrendous. I mean, Cooper Kupp, I think, like you mentioned, will have a huge game here because they can't seem to defend the slot. Carolina can't.
And he always has huge games.
And he always has huge games, but I think this is going to be one of the top ones if this game even is within range, even though I'm still taking Carolina plus 10. The real question is, can you start Akers against this poor rush defense?
Listen, Akers is bad, but there are people like me that have to run him out there. So I think, again, just because of the mess at running back all over the place, you can't be as picky, especially in deep leagues, right?
Yeah.
You can't be as picky with some of these guys. I mean, Carolina's given up like 140-ish, 135, 140 per game, giving up a ton of fantasy points to running backs. Akers is probably a flex, but he's going to get more work than Darrell Henderson, right? So
I usually think so.
If you got to pick somebody, you got to hope that he gets it done, right? I'm running him out there on a hope and a prayer. Hope he gets in the end zone and see what happens. But
Brian Robinson just named the starter for Washington Commanders tonight. Do you go Akers or Brian Robinson? Because he's somebody that you could have stashed on your bench or picked up.
So he's starting for sure.
They named him the starter. Yep.
Okay.
I don't know what that looks like though, and nobody probably does.
That's what I'm thinking. I probably wait a week. I probably run Akers out there, and I probably regret it. But I worry that he's going to come back. He's going to be on a snap count, right? It's going to be limited work. Are they doing it because he was going to be the starter, and they're just saying, hey, you didn't lose your job, so we're naming you the starter. You're going to get the first series. Where's the game at tonight? Is it in Washington? I don't know offhand.
I actually have no freaking clue. Let me see. Washington Commanders game. Sorry. At Chicago.
Okay. So the only thing I was going to say is they run him out there. He gets his heroes welcome back, but that doesn't matter in Chicago. So I probably start Akers, and I probably regret it because I'm cautious with the snap count.
Yeah, I don't blame you. I do think like there could be still a little what is it? They kind of limit his touches, but I mean, man, he out touched Antonio Gibson last week, so this could be the big game for Brian Robinson. I mean, Chicago's defense I don't find that bad though, so I don't want to get too pulled away from Cam Akers. He's the one that I would have a tough time starting him. Like if you've been active on the waiver wires, Kenneth Walker, somebody that I would put out there over Cam Akers. I know Zeke has a tough matchup. He's probably still I'd probably put Zeke out there because I think he could score a touchdown at any given moment. So it's low for me. Like Cam Akers is very much in the flex position, like you said. And even then I'm looking for a wide receiver instead of Cam Akers.
Yeah. It's if you have to. I'm in a situation where I have to.
Yep.
You're not targeting Cam Akers as a slam dunk. Got to put him in this week. But if you need a running back, plug him in.
He's your guy.
At least it's against a bad defense.
It may be a great play this week, Cam Akers, especially if the Rams win or winning. Yeah, he could be a smash play this week. Seahawks versus Cardinals. The Seahawks are plus 2.5 here, and the over-under is 50.5. That's huge.
That's a lot.
Over-under. Yes. And it's not even the most on this slate that we're going to be talking about tonight. Do you take the Hawks with the points or Cardinals?
I'm taking the Hawks with the points, plus 2.5.
I think I freaking take the Cardinals here, and I hate the Cardinals. And I think they looked so good last week that I'm starting to buy back in. They looked pretty good.
So 1 week does it for you?
That's all it usually takes. Against Philadelphia, that's why.
Okay. That's fair.
They're going to get better with D-Hop. So anyways, 50.5. I think I go the under, even though the Seahawks defense is horrendous, but I think you no, I'm taking over.
The whole time you've been talking, I've been sitting here struggling on this one because I'm trying to think, 28-21 is, 49. Throw a field goal in there, 28-24,
yeah.
31-21.
Yeah.
I'm probably going over because I think the defenses are just bad enough.
Yeah, because Arizona's defense ain't great.
Yeah. Yeah, they stopped the run, but they're not great overall.
That's actually the note I have. I'm pretty solid against the run. Geno, though, let's talk about Seahawks. Geno is the man, and you likely picked him up on waivers this week. I know a lot of leagues I'm in, it was like this week was the buy-in week, right? Everyone was like, now I got to pick up this guy. And he got, I saw some ridiculous fab bids for him, but he's been great. You have to start him against this defense if you just picked him up, if you just spent $100.
Absolutely. No
this
question.
Is going to be
run Geno out there. I hate saying it.
Dude, it's going to be it's going to be one of those like I'm in and then you get a 9-point stinker and you're like, what the hell? it has that feeling.
May as well have Russell Wilson.
I saw him on a couple waivers now. All right, we'll start Geno then. I mean, the Hawks defense, we both just said, it's pretty bad. They have been, or not Hawks. Well, theirs is bad too. The Cardinals. Arizona has been pretty solid against the run. KW3, another huge waiver wire get for teams this week. I'm plugging them in.
Yeah, I think you have to. You have to be a little bit. You have to temper your expectations a little bit, right? What do you have? 8 carries for 88 last week,
79 or something like that. Yeah, close.
Yeah, so big number on a few carries there, and I don't know that you can count on a high average. Obviously, he's not going to average 10 yards a carry, but Arizona's giving up less than 100 yards a game to running backs. So temper the expectations, probably RB2-ish. But, I mean, he should clearly be the guy, right? Penny's gone.
They said DJ Dallas is going to be more involved, which makes me a little nervous that he steals some pass catching work. But
How much was Walker getting before? I didn't think he got a ton before. Obviously, he was in the backup role.
He took what Penny would like to have. Like if Penny was getting what he was getting, Penny would have been an RB1 probably somewhere. He would get
his targets are
3 target, and then 1 target.
1 and 0. Yeah.
Yeah.
So not a ton.
No.
So if Dallas comes in and takes some of that, I think he probably gets a couple in this game, couple of targets, see what he does. But
yeah,
I think you can be confident running him out there, right?
I think that's I think so. And Norton and I talked about it. We're hoping and expecting 2 to 4 targets for Kenneth Walker, and that's enough. If he runs well, like that's enough.
Yeah.
Overall 2 to 4, not just this game, but yeah. Cardinals, there are 2 guys that should possibly make your lineups that you could get on waivers. And especially if you have bye weeks, like these are guys that I would pick up off the waivers and they would fly into my starting lineup for this week against the Seahawks defense. Do you agree? Eno Benjamin and Rondale Moore.
Yeah, and that goes to our question we got earlier, right? Is Eno a good start this week? And I think he's a guy that you have to be looking at. He played 54% of the snaps last week. He's produced when he's gotten the opportunity. I didn't write him down in the notes, but he had some pretty interesting metrics on, when he gets the opportunity, he's making the most of it, right? He's making big plays. He's making people miss. I think he might be a sneaky top 12 back this week.
This defense is so bad.
Defense.
Yeah. I think like if you picked him up, there's a good argument to be made that he should at least be in your flex, even in PPR leagues. To the same sense, Rondale Moore, who he's been hurt. He had a decent game. I think he had 10 points last week. He might have a huge game here. We're seeing an over under of 50 points. So we expect this to be a shootout. And Seahawks defense ranks bottom of the league in most metrics. Like if you have Rondale, you got to be starting him.
Yeah, I think you're comfortable running him out there. I don't necessarily love him as a player, but I think your situation is going to dictate what you do with him. Alex says Rondale's breakout game. But yeah, I mean, if it's going to happen, this is the matchup, right? So this defense, hopefully to your point earlier, Arizona's getting on track and they can start get that offense clicking. But if you're running them out there this week, do you think it's going to continue? D-Hop comes back.
I don't.
No, I think this is
his fourth option.
Yeah.
I like the thing that you see the coach, Cliff, he'll be like, we're manufacturing touches for Rondale. And I've said this probably on the last episode, so I'm sorry for repeating myself. If you have to manufacture touches, it's not a great sign for your guy. But like, so I'm a pretty avid Rondale Moore hater, and I am all about him this week. Like, I want all of this game and probably the next one that we're going to talk about.
Yeah, exactly.
The next one, Bills versus Chiefs. The over-under is 54. I think that might be the highest this season.
It's the highest one I've seen or remember seeing. Let me put it that way.
Yeah, because I don't know if we've been tracking it like every week. We have been just started doing it recently, but 54 is the over-under. Do you take the over?
I think I do. What was that Rams Chiefs game a couple years ago? Like 45.
It was the playoffs.
Yeah.
Thank you for bringing that up, because let me just get this off my chest. What guy in the NFL looked at this game and said, "Yeah, this is a good 4:00 game"? Are you kidding me?
Yeah.
How's this not a primetime game? That game the playoff game was insane. It came down to a coin flip.
Yeah.
Gabe Davis had 4 TDs in that game.
Hey, you can't put them all. You can't put the Bills and Chiefs in primetime every week.
And they blew it this week. They did the Broncos. They've been putting Broncos in primetime. Oh, man. Alex, what a bold take here.
That
Bills
is.
go up early and Singletary has a game. The dude has got to be like I think he has probably Singletary's face tattooed on his butt.
Is he the number one Singletary fan in the world?
Yeah, he probably has a burner.
Or outside of Buffalo, let me put it that way.
He probably beat some of the Buffalo guys. Singletary's number one fan. That's his Twitter burner. The Bills are -2.5. Do you take that or you go Chiefs? This is tough. This is tough.
Yeah. I'm taking the Bills here. I'm taking them -2.5. I think they win. And I think they win, even if it's a last second field goal, you cover as long as it's a tie game. But I'm taking the Bills.
I think it's the Bills too, and I think it's because of the defensive line. I think
point.
Mahomes he's going to get pressured. I'm not saying this is going to be, I think it's going to be a high scoring game too, but I think the determining factor is that defensive line and Mahomes is amazing. I get it, but I think that's the tipping point. Josh Allen's real freaking good. So we know that we're starting Gabe Davis and Stephon Diggs. Yes. Isaiah McKenzie actually has a pretty rough matchup of the group. When you look at the cornerback on the Kansas City Chiefs, who plays a lot of slot coverage, is he cracking your lineup this week?
He's probably a no-go for me. Matchup, I think Davis and Diggs dominate the targets here. Sky Moore gets 5 targets. That's specifically for you, Mario?
I think so. It was probably because of the Singletary.
100%.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm probably staying away unless you're in a super deep league, people on buys. I'm probably staying away from McKenzie this week.
I think that's a good call, and I think I agree with you. I think there's just some other interesting plays, like we just spoke about Rondale Moore. He would be somebody that I would probably consider over McKenzie. Not on tonight's slate that we're going to be talking about. And I mentioned him a bunch last night. Tyler Boyd would be somebody I'm considering over McKenzie if T. Higgins is to miss. Like, there's a couple other guys that I just think they're closer to the first or second option than McKenzie being the third. Although I think Dawson Knox is questionable this week, so could help. In a game that we're expecting, obviously, a shootout, and we already got to talk about him a little bit. Devin Singletary makes you a little nervous because just because it might be a ton of back and forth. You don't see a ton of rushes. But this Kansas City rushing defense allowed a huge game to Josh Jacobs last week. Lenny had a big receiving day against them week 4, and JT had a pretty average day. I think he had about 100 total yards. It was 71 rushing. I don't know what the receiving was. So, like, what are we expecting from Singletary in this game when it's going to be what we're calling a shootout?
So this is one that I could see why it would scare you away. Clearly, Alex is ready to go.
Just say it.
Start Singletary. I do think that you probably play him this week when he's done damage. It's been more in the passing game, in my opinion, than it has been in the rush game.
Rushing,
right? So he's had, I think, what was it against Miami? He had 11 targets. That wasn't quite the shootout that we expect here, but I think that he can be a factor in a game like this and get some catches and make some plays. So I don't know that he's, a top 10 or top 12 play, but I think you can run him out there and be confident that he's going to be okay.
Yeah, it's been a really interesting ride for Singletary here.
Yeah.
8.2, 4.1, goes to Miami, and that's where he gets 11 targets, combined 5 in weeks 1 and 2. Baltimore has 5 targets, which is week 4. He had 11.6 that week. And Pittsburgh, he comes back and only has 2. Makes sense. On
that game was over in 10 minutes.
It really was. So, I mean, if we can exclude the Pittsburgh game because of the game script and in games that are closer, he's getting targets. So you might be spot on with that. So I guess we're saying start Singletary.
Run him out there.
Alex is loving it. He's jumping up and down. Switch over to the Chiefs side. I think Clyde Edwards-Helaire is a bench. I think he's a bench.
Who are you going to start over him?
Eno Benjamin.
Okay.
I'm serious. Kenneth Walker. I don't know if I do it with Brian Robinson. Cam Akers, I would start over Clyde Edwards-Helaire this week.
Okay.
Zeke. I'm just trying to think of like close names to what we typically expect of Clyde. I think he's a little bit higher in RB ranks, but
would you run? I'm just going to pick some randoms. Would you run somebody like Algier out there from Atlanta over?
Okay. Atlanta's too shitty.
Okay. Would you?
I'm looking at some RB names. Give me one second.
Yeah, I'm trying to pick
MG3, I would play over him.
Yeah, I probably would too.
I mean, they're on bye. Miles Sanders, obviously.
What about somebody
Ramondre, easily.
What about somebody like Tony Pollard?
In this game, which we will talk about, against the Eagles, where I think they're going to be playing
also
for
a bad matchup.
It's not a great matchup. That's a tough one. I want to say yes on Pollard, but the truth is, even if Dallas is down, that doesn't necessarily mean Pollard's going to get targets.
Yeah.
I think Clyde is going to have a horrific game this week. And we're starting to see him phased out of this offense a little bit.
Would you start Najee over him?
Oh, that one's the freaking toughest.
I keep going back to it and I hate it.
I think you would. Oh God, Tampa Bay though. It's another terrible matchup. No, I think I go Clyde on hopes that he's involved in the passing work. Yeah, but there's a lot of guys that I would rather go over Clyde Edwards this week. This defensive front is no joke. The only way that he makes work and this you're hoping for some pass work, which can happen. We've seen him do that in the first 3 weeks. But you're also hoping that like some of the designed plays that they do in the end zone, which is like these little shovel passes from Mahomes. This is a good question too.
A good question. Yep. Mostert over Clyde Edwards-Helaire this week.
Oh shit. I think I go Mostert. I'm real down on Clyde this week.
It's a yes for me too. Mostert over Clyde.
Yeah, Mostert seems to have like taken over this backfield. They're going to be in a close game. I think I go Raheem.
Even though we said there's some concerns earlier, right? So not to backtrack on what we said, but I think it's Mostert for sure.
Alex agrees. And I think Alex is kind of a big CEH guy, so that's interesting. Juju hasn't been good.
No.
Like, it's to the point where you're wondering how good man, I hate saying this part, was Big Ben that some of these receivers had huge years with him outside of AB.
You mean how good was AB?
AB was great.
Open?
But like Juju, we haven't seen a good Juju yet. I'm trying to think of more here. Mike Wallace, he made Santonio Holmes. He made, and this could be coaching. Ryan. This could absolutely be Steelers coaching. Yes, Martavis was a stud. It makes you wonder, like guys like Deontay Johnson had 8 TDs, I think, last year. He has 0 through 5. Do you start Juju in this matchup?
Everything about this matchup says that you should get whatever pieces of it you can, but I don't think that includes Juju.
Oh shit! That's like the MVS plug.
Yeah,
Mecole Hardman.
I don't know that I love any of them, but if it's not Kelsey, I don't know that I love any of their pass catchers, but they get it done, right?
Yeah.
They score points, so somebody's got to get them. But Juju hasn't been good. I think he's a talented receiver, but I don't think he fits in. He doesn't fit in the slot. He doesn't fit outside. He's just in a weird spot. He's not super fast. He's not,
Yeah.
It
makes sense.
He's got a weird skill set, I think, for a lot of offenses that he has to be in the perfect situation. And you would think that this is going to be one of them because of Andy Reid, because of Pat Mahomes, but it just hasn't come to fruition yet.
Yeah. And like, I do think, because I'm so down on Clyde, somebody's got to get it done. I think Jerick McKinnon weirdly scores a touchdown in this game. I think Juju could MVS, like we mentioned, and how Alex just commented, he's somebody that, like, if you're real desperate and you want that very high upside, but also could be a low floor, MVS is an interesting play. I think I have to start Juju if I have him.
Let me ask you this question based off what
8 targets in 4 games. Go ahead.
If you had to pick one from this backfield, would you play McKinnon over Clyde?
Like I picked up McKinnon and plugged him in last week, and I was like, we were so desperate, and I was happy with the 7 points that I got. I just, if I had to, God, no,
you wouldn't love either of them.
Yeah, I couldn't do it. Like, but man, McKinnon, I think, is going to be more involved than everybody wants. I couldn't do it. Could you?
No. That's why I put you on the spot and not me.
Yeah, and like, it's the worst to put me on the spot for that, because I'm the king of making those silly ass moves because I'm like, I'm so much smarter than everyone. And then it's like, here's 3 points. Clyde Edwards-Helaire has 18.
Isn't that how it always works? I feel like
time.
Every fantasy owner has had that happen at some point or another.
Dude, it's the worst feeling. It is the worst feeling. I did it with Allen Robinson week 1, and T-Mac ended up having 13 or 14. And that's not my worst one, but that was one of them. All right. Yeah, like the Chiefs, just to harp on this one, like they're going to have to put up numbers. Like you should want every piece of this. But again, I don't think Clyde is the piece that I would take. That's kind of the summation for me.
Yeah, fair.
Eagles versus Cowboys, Sunday Night Football. Philly is -6.5, which is actually quite the spread compared to how close the Cards game was. Over under is 42. Are you taking the over or under?
It's a real good question, which is why I sat here very quietly for a minute.
It's tough. I think I go over.
I think so.
These defenses are
24-21.
It's going to be close.
Something like that. I think it goes over, but I don't think it goes way over.
I agree.
And I take probably Dallas plus the points because I think they keep it close.
Oof. I think I go Eagles here. I think
if the Eagles cover 6.5, it goes over. If Dallas covers, it stays under.
So you're taking under and Dallas. Yeah, I think I go over and I think I go Philly. So that's kind of funny. Dallas defense has looked great. It started off a little slow, but they've really turned up these last few weeks. Is there a player on this lineup? We have A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith, Dallas Goedert, Miles Sanders. Is there anybody that you're going to bench? Because I couldn't think of anybody that I would consider, and there's not any that I would start outside of that. And Hurts, obviously.
Right. Hurts is, I think, a given at this point, unless we've referenced him a lot, unless you talk to Alex. But I think he's coming around. The only one that out of that group that you mentioned that has to give you pause is Sanders, just because of his track record of inconsistency. But I think you're running him out there this week. I think he's probably in that RB2 range, pretty firmly planted there. So I'm not benching any of them. That offense has been too good so far, even though Dallas has a solid D.
I can't. There's not a way that I could bench any of these guys. I've said it probably on this show as before. Miles Sanders is very much a guy that, like, there's going to be some rough weeks, but he'll finish as an RB2, or at least I think he will.
Yep.
And it's almost like one of those, you don't want to get too cute with him because you don't want to miss those high weeks and bench those 30-point games, 20-point games, or whatever it may be.
Yeah, he's one that you got to take the good with the bad, right?
Yeah.
So he's going to be
he's the Mike
Williams. High ceiling, very low floor play every single week is what it is.
In a game that if they do lead, which I expect them to lead a lot, you could see Sanders getting some work. If it's competitive, though, that's where it goes more to the receivers and tight end. Dallas side of things, I think the big question here, well, actually there's two that I didn't even write down the one, but both Zeke and Pollard have been so inconsistent this season. It's unreal. I mean, Zeke's kind of been consistently bad, but is getting a ton of work. We're putting him off your lineup it seems criminal in the sense of this is so much volume. They're in a game that you are too, I think. They'll likely be trailing. We think they'll probably be trailing. Are you starting either? Are you benching either? Like a lot of situations, these are the guys that, like, you drafted them. It's hard to bench them.
Yeah, and that's what I keep going back to with a lot of these answers, right? You didn't spend a ton of capital on Zeke, but you spent enough to where you should have to play him as one of your running backs, unless you hit the waiver wire hard and got some of those guys late.
So like a guy like Kenneth Walker, say you had the choice, right? You drafted Derrick Henry, you took Zeke in the third, you picked up Kenneth Walker. Are you going Kenneth Walker over Zeke or Pollard?
Well, this week you're playing both of them because Henry's on a bye. So
okay, you drafted Austin Eckler. My bad.
For this matchup, I probably do, considering the matchup that both teams have. I'd probably go KW3 over Zeke, but I'm comfortable running him out there if I have to. I'm not looking at my lineup going, "Oh my God, I'm in terrible shape."
Yeah.
If I have to run him
He's
out
getting
there.
a ton of volume.
Exactly.
Mostert is another one that was obviously just talked about. Would you go Mostert over Zeke?
Probably.
Yeah, that one's close.
I wasn't a very confident probably either.
Yeah. I go Zeke over Clyde.
Yeah.
I think I go Mostert over Zeke. This Philly defense and their defensive front is it's great. So like if you play Zeke, you're really hoping. Is it crazy that I think his ceiling for this week is 60 yards and a touchdown? That's what you're hoping for. Maybe 2 catches,
I think
3
so.
catches.
Yeah. I
Like
think
he'll
you're
have
I think you're
7
thrilled with that.
catches. Yeah. I agree. And Pollard, like I said, has been a little bit inconsistent. I find it hard to plug him in some of the lineups I have. The dude is so good. It's just the lack of volume that he's receiving, and they just keep plugging Zeke away. It's hard to bench him, but it's also hard to start him.
Yeah. I mean, I don't think you can play him right now.
He's got one of the biggest spreads.
Yeah. Yeah. Somewhere Rob is crying into a drink, but
Yeah. Probably at
I
his
don't
wedding.
think you can play him.
Crying about Pollard not getting all the work yet. Last game of the evening, the Broncos versus Chargers. This is the Monday night game. The over-under is 45.5. The Broncos are +5. What do you do here?
Chargers and under.
I go Chargers and over.
I don't trust the Broncos to score more than 12 points.
Something's got to change, dude.
Why?
You're right. Las Vegas hasn't. Las Vegas did. They've changed a little bit. Broncos have not.
Like we're at a point in the season, right? The last couple of weeks we're like, oh, it's early. We're a third of the way through. Like after this week, we're a third of the way through.
Yep.
And they haven't yet. Why does it have to change?
You're right. The hiring process for NFL head coaches has got to change. That part has to change.
Yeah.
They keep giving these lackeys head coaching jobs, man. Like Joe Judge was a coach for years. Hackett, McDaniels, Patricia, like just because they're on this behind somebody who is good at being a head coach, like, oh, here we go. Bengals didn't look great at this point last year.
But I'd be willing to bet that they averaged more points per game.
I was just about to say they were putting up more points. They absolutely were. Everything about them was clicking more in the sense of how many points they were just losing close games, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, I don't remember, but I would be confident in saying that.
Yeah, because I think the Broncos are averaging 16 points a game or something like that. It's pretty low.
It's not good.
Meanwhile, the Seahawks with Geno are just out there balling. Bengals have the same problems with none of the luck magic. I don't even know if I understand, Felix. Same problems as what just happened here.
I have no idea.
All right, so like I said earlier in the episode, Russ has been dropped in a few of my leagues. I am not willing to pick him up. It could cost you, but like, dude, this offense has been underwhelming to say the least. Cortland's been a bright spot. He's been pretty solid, if solid plus, I would say, better than solid. And Judy has had some moments, right? Like Judy's had two good games, one mediocre, 2 stinkers, but the 2 stinkers happened when he was dealing with I can't remember what injury, but it was dealing with the injury. Do you feel comfortable starting Judy against this Chargers defense?
Probably not. I'm probably only starting Sutton if I have him until they show me that they can sustain and score a couple points in a game. I'm probably running Gordon out there, and I'm probably running Sutton out there, and that's it.
That's the next person I wanted to mention was MG3. He should be in your lineup to some capacity. When we're talking about guys like Clyde, I'm starting him over. I'm probably starting him over Zeke. I'm probably starting MG3 over. I just had one on the tip of my tongue. I would start MG3 over Mostert, personally.
Yeah, all the guys we've talked about.
Yeah, and I am MG3 hater, and I would probably start him over those guys. I would start him over McKinnon.
Would you start him over Najee?
If it was a real question, probably against Tampa Bay.
Oh yeah, 100%.
Yeah, most you could be in that situation. You definitely could be in that situation. MG3 win in like 10th round. Yeah, I would plug MG3 right in there as long as I had a wide receiver for my flex. Charger side, if Keenan Allen plays, you again like this. I almost didn't put this question, but like Mike Williams is in your lineup. Like he could easily go off in any of these games.
Yeah.
And if Keenan plays, I bet you Surtain is guarding Keenan a lot, which opens up a lot of doors for Mike Williams.
Yeah, I think both of those guys, regardless of if they're both healthy, one's healthy, I think you're playing them every week. Herbert's too good. That offense has the potential to be too good. You're running them both out there.
I'm gonna say something bold here. If Keenan doesn't play, I don't know if I start Mike Williams. I really think Surtain is one of the best cornerbacks in the league, and he does a lot of shadow covering. Oh, here we go. God,
I knew it was coming.
He's like, yeah. Wait, on his other ass cheek, there's Singletary, and then there's Mike Williams, and it's their faces right there.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think I'd bench Mike Williams in this matchup. If Keenan doesn't play, which sounds crazy, but we'll come back to this and either make fun of me or praise me for being the best. Gerald Everett put up a stinker last week. I think he's going to be a big part of this offense. I really actually believe in his talent. I believe what he's doing for his offense, but it's still overall that falls to probably in the tight end 8 to 12 area in a lot of situations. I'm starting Everett. Are you?
Yeah. Yeah, I think so. You know, he's been good all year. He's been good all year. Tight ends have been a mess. Running backs have been a mess. So it's, you know, when you find somebody that's been relatively consistent, barring that 1 week, you got to run him out there.
Yeah, and like Everett to this point in the season, right? You probably got him either late or undrafted, but you picked him up. But there are some guys that you could have picked up this last week that maybe you're contemplating. So let's think about who those could be. Hayden Hurst. If there's no T. Higgins, would you start Hayden Hurst over Gerald Everett?
I'd have to do some more. I'd have to do some digging, but I would consider it. I'd like to look at it and see, but it's an intriguing proposition. Let me put it that way.
Yeah, I think Hayden Hurst 4 out of 5 games had 6 targets or a touchdown. It's been a pretty solid year for Hurst.
Fantasy Pros have him 8 and 9 this week. Everett than Hurst. Just FYI.
Damn, I nailed that, dude.
You did.
Freaking crushed it. All right, the next one's not going to be near as close, but it's intriguing. Yeah, so Hurst 8 targets, 7 targets, 2, 4, 7 targets in the 2 and 4, and in the 4 target game he had a touchdown. So he's been solid. The second person is Taysom Hill. You're looking for magic and lightning to strike twice. Would you start Taysom Hill in your tight end position over Everett?
No.
I don't think it's worth it. Like if you're I don't think it's worth it. I mean, there's not a part that I would think that you should.
Yeah, you can't count on it. You can count on Everett at least being involved, right?
Yeah. Whether
or not he gets the targets or the receptions or the yards or touchdowns, whatever, you just have no idea what's going to happen with Taysom Hill.
No, and I think this week could be an indicator for what we might expect to see for the rest of the season.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think if he does come out and have another one, who do they have? Cincinnati this week? I think so.
Saints play Cincinnati this year?
Yeah.
I just talked about this shit last night. It is Cincy.
Yeah. Yeah. So, I mean, he's got Cincy, Arizona, Las Vegas. You could see them work him in, right? I mean, every time that he's been involved in a semi-regular basis, I feel like he's not been consistent, but he's been relevant. Like, you could consider running him out there, not to the tune of like 34 points or whatever he had last week, but
yeah,
there are times where you could rely on him for at least reasonable volume. They're going to run him. They're going to throw to him.
He's going to throw.
He's going to throw. Yeah.
I think there's a case to be made here, and I don't want to get too crazy because I don't think it's going to be like it's going to be the very light version of this. But like the way that the San Fran used Deebo Samuel, where he was a jack of all trades, I think we've seen New Orleans do this with Taysom Hill, but like it was weird because in the beginning of the year, kind of first 3 weeks, they didn't really know what to do with him now that he's a tight end. And then last week they're like, this is what we do with them. And I think this is something that could keep going. And that's to a point that's valuable to have in your tight end position, to be able to play. That gives you a little bit of advantage if it's more than just, they put the ball in the athlete's hands. Like Alex is saying, like it makes it interesting.
Yeah, he's an intriguing weapon, right? And you can say that about, Cordero Patterson, for example, right?
Mm-hmm.
He was always somebody that I was like, if they would just figure out a way to get him the ball, right? He was clearly, elusive. He could run, he could do all that stuff because he was a great kick returner. Some of that has to translate. I mean, you take that back to, Devin Hester, you take that back to some of those other kick return guys. If they could have just found creative ways to get them the ball, and Hill obviously not the athlete that some of those guys are, but he still is a weapon that I think could be utilized and is currently underutilized probably.
Yeah. No, that's where you're buying in, right? Like that's if you spent it would have probably been a good portion of your fab, probably anywhere from 10 to 15% of your fab. If you spent fab on Taysom Hill, I think the call is to see what happens this week. There's going to be desperate times though. Like I have Kittle. I'm going to probably hold on to Taysom Hill all season. If Kittle goes down, guess what? Desperate play with Taysom Hill because it might be a big game.
Yeah.
This week, I think you're right by putting him on the bench. I know we got off of Broncos and Chargers, but that was our last game. House, did you have any closing thoughts on this week for week 6? What's your Steelers going to do?
Take the Rams in your survivor pools, or take Tampa Bay because the Steelers are going to get beat again.
That's who I got.
Yeah, I hate to say it.
Oh man, this is a tough year for you Pittsburgh fans. Welcome to our Brownies world.
Hey, what did I tell you guys the other day that
first time since I
was born they've had 7 losing seasons, I think. So I've had a pretty good run. If I have to take one right now, I will.
What if this is the next decade?
Well, then I'll understand how you guys have felt for the last
my life.
For 2 decades.
Yeah.
But on a positive note, hockey season started too. I know we're talking football, but for my sports junkies, Penguins are winning 3-0. Let's go.
Get me. This ain't a hockey show. What is this?
Hey, I dabble in everything, buddy.
Yeah. No Pittsburgh NBA team.
No.
No NBA at all?
Not really. I mean, I'll watch it, but I don't have a rooting interest.
Now? Cast time?
No.
Donovan Mitchell there?
No.
If you aren't already following at DadBodFS on Twitter, we put the videos on DadBod Fantasy Squad for YouTube, Twitch, Facebook. We'll post all the recordings from this episode on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts.
All the major platforms?
Oh, myself, our house. Peace.